Wonderful Wednesday here in Trinidad and Tobago and around the world, and we are going across to Cari now, who's going to tell us what he's talking about with Amanda Chukwan.
Yep, that's right. I'm going to be chatting with Amanda Chukwan, who is the PI Communications Associate at the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. So, good morning, Amanda, and welcome.
Good morning. It's so great to be here. How are you doing today?
Doing quite well, and just to jump into it, the World Refugee Day. That was on the 20th. How did the UNHCR commemorate that day?
Right. So we actually have a 2-week-long festival. So even though World Refugee Day was the 20th, we have a series of events that are running from the 16th, from the 18th until the 26th. So we celebrated our previous events by having a concert on Saturday with Tessie Band, Freetown Collective, and all the amazing refugee talent that's in Trinidad and Tobago from different countries. And we also had an event with Read to Me TT, in which we had 2 kids read a story about solidarity, one of which was bilingual. So we're trying to make sure that all of our events are inclusive, so that all events have some sort of Spanish language integration, if not bilingual, because we want to make sure, that everybody can enjoy. We have 2 more events coming up that I'd be happy to tell you about as well.
Definitely. So before we go into those 2 events, though, being that now it's a time of COVID-19 and, physical distancing is encouraged, how are you going to commemorate that in this sense, in this regard?
Right. So actually, pretty early on, UNHCR around the world decided that all of the events to celebrate World Refugee Day, which happens every year, would all be online. So we had to go into new territory. Basically,
right.
We had to ensure that things like issues with Zoom and things that are just come with the territory of new technology were worked out.
Right.
But
yeah.
essentially, it's exciting in a way because what it means is that we can be innovative with our offerings. So, for instance, that made us look for, who is in the field already doing this kind of work. And then we saw Read to Me TT has been, from the beginning of quarantine, offering a new story every night to children through Instagram Live. And we said, this would be a great partner to work with.
Definitely.
It's the same with the concert. As you would have seen, WHO had a concert with Lady Gaga, and they were able to have people from all over the world contribute. So we said, this is a great model to follow, and that became our concert that we had on Saturday, and it was pretty phenomenal. We had about we've since had 1,000 views of the concert, which for our kind of content is pretty amazing.
Definitely. So tell us about the 2 upcoming events then.
Sure. So we have an event that's actually tonight. It's at 6 p.m. and it's all on Facebook at facebook.com/CaribbeanUN. And essentially tonight's event is a film screening. So we were able to locate refugees who currently live in the U.S. and they're the stars of 2 films. One is called This Being Human, and the other is called Little Rebel. So we were able to actually have the stars of those films, who are no longer refugees actually, take part in a Q&A that happens after the screening.
Right.
So all of that, the screening starts at 5:30 right on Facebook in the comfort of your home. And then after that, at 6 is the Q&A, which will also be live streamed on Facebook, or you can join on Zoom.
Very cool. And now, you mentioned something earlier about making, the events more inclusive. How do you do so? How do you make an event more inclusive?
For us, I think it's a few ways. I mean, if it were a physical event, of course, you'd want to think about things like accessibility, like wheelchair access, which is something that a lot of event planners, I myself am guilty of this, we overlook. And it's really something that we shouldn't. If it's an online event, it becomes more inclusive in that we're able to transcend physical space. However, it means that we need to make sure that the language is something that people can understand.
Right.
So, and it's also something we want to just promote culturally, the fact that learning a new language is an asset. So what we did was we just ensured that, for instance, the Q&A tonight is bilingual, meaning we have a translator from UWI's translation bureau who will be there, which means that if we have people who speak Spanish only who want to ask questions about, what it's like to be a refugee, what it's like to be in the U.S., that they can do so. But similarly, it means that our Trinidadian audience is also not neglected. So people who also speak English would be able to participate as well.
Wonderful. Do you think technology has helped in regards to making it more inclusive, not only for those who may speak other languages, but those who may be differently able as well?
I definitely think so. Of course, unfortunately, there are people who may not be able to have a consistent internet access just because of their circumstances.
Right.
But I do think that technology is a new medium. Well, I mean, it's always a new medium, but it's definitely something we should explore now, not just because of COVID, but outside of it. I think we should learn from COVID.
Definitely. Now, let's get a little more technical because not everyone may know, like, what is a refugee defined as?
Sure. So a refugee is actually a legal definition, and it's often mistaken for a migrant. But really, the motivations of the two groups of people are different. So a refugee flees because of persecution in their home country.
Right.
And that persecution might be generalized, it might be violence, it might be conflict, it might be tension, it might be instability. And there are different grounds for becoming a refugee or seeking asylum. For instance, you might belong to a particular social group that's persecuted, or other reasons as well.
You mentioned earlier that the concerts included refugees who are in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you have any figures about the well, not an exact figure, but do you have the level of refugees we have in this country?
Sure. All of this information is available online at r4b.info. So if anybody wants to see the breakdown of refugees per region, I definitely recommend that they start there. I would say that the statistic that we have right now is around 17,000, which is pretty close to the government statistics that they gave during the registration process.
Right.
However, we have refugees here who are not only Venezuelan, but who are from over 30 different countries. So yes, there is definitely a presence in Trinidad and Tobago, but in the same way that there's a presence throughout the Caribbean and the Group.
What can we, the citizenry, do to be more supportive of refugees?
Honestly, I think that this is really a matter that we contend with in some of our events. From my perspective, which is always a humanitarian perspective, it may not matter what your political beliefs are, or in the broader sense. I think what really matters is just how you treat people, bottom line. So, treat people with respect, with dignity, and with kindness. And that's something that we talk about in the events. For instance, we have an event on the 26th, which is, again, we talk about how innovative social media or how innovative technology is, in the same way that we have reality shows like Love is Blind and so on, which you may have seen on Netflix.
Right.
We actually put together some Venezuelans with Trinidadians in conversation about their experiences during COVID, strangers who had never met before. And through a simple conversation, they were able to, get a better understanding of each other's experience. So, for instance, there's one woman who says, she's from Trinidad, who says, I was pregnant during COVID. She was 6 to 8 months pregnant, and she said, this was really hard. But I had my husband here with me. And then she's speaking, and then in that same video, someone else says, I really miss my family. They're not here. I have no one. And in that moment, you kind of realize, yes, there's a broader issue happening. However, on the human level, people need other people. And that is really something that we're talking about in this series of events.
Right, wonderful. And before we go, what is the criteria someone has to meet to be considered a refugee? Because some people may come and claim for refugee status, but what do you need to legitimately become a refugee?
Right. So I say that, so again, that word legitimate refugee is just a little bit problematic. I would say that the process is standardized throughout the world. Also that I encourage everyone to look at the 1951 Convention, which has the details and the grounds under which people can apply for asylum across the world. So this is a system that is, that again, is not just related to Trinidad and Tobago, but is in in works implemented throughout the world. So that's one thing that I would see. But again, I would just go back to that original definition of fleeing from persecution, conflict, violence, tension, and so on. Again, all of this information is available on unhcr.org. And I know that it's quite a bit, but essentially these definitions are grounded, they're solid, and they are legal.
Wonderful. And with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us. And again, just to underline the times of your upcoming events.
Sure. So the event tonight is at 6 p.m. The film screening itself happens at 5:30. At 6 p.m. is the Q&A. The event on the 26th, which is the conversations that I told you about, is at 6 p.m. They're all on the United Nations Information Center, facebook.com/CaribbeanUN.
All right, wonderful. I want to thank you so much, Amanda Chukwan, PI Communications Associate at the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency. And again, you can log in on their Facebook page to become a part of that event, become registered, or to participate in the event itself and get much more information. And of course, you can check out their website if you needed more information on the Refugee Agency here in Trinidad and Tobago. All right, we're going to take a short break and come back with much more. We'll be right back.